Hello malty malt merrymakers, I'm Ralphie, here in the bothy at the fireside with the fire on, because it's a great situation to be at the end of a year when you're mulling over a wee whisky and mulling over what's been happening over the last year. I'd like to share a moment or two with you as part of my review for Whisky of the Year 2024. And I don't call it Whisky of the Year 2023 because we've just had 2023. That year is done. That year is dusted. We've got to move on. We've got to refresh where we're at, recalibrate what we're doing, redefine how we're getting on with our malt moments and quality spirit experiences, and basically building the progress that we're making in improving our nose, improving our taste, separating the textures, the form, the sensations of a whisky from the actual original flavours, the core flavours, and the permutations of core flavours, particularly over time as whisky is aged in oakwood. It's a time for reflection, a time for review and consideration, and I'm going to start this by really reviewing what I've noticed in 2023, because it's been a big year for me. And I'm looking forward to 2024. I have selected my Whisky of the Year. Well, a little clue there, by the way. My Whisky of the Year for 2024. It's one that next year, or if you happen to be watching it, it relates to 2024. Because, you know, you never know how long content is going to be online. It's the way the internet is morphing, and it's morphing considerably. But I don't want to segue too much. Let's get back to the 2023, which saw me reach 1,000 reviews. I never expected on this channel over 14 years to be buying almost 1,000 bottles of whisky and other quality spirits, opening them, sharing them, reviewing them, documenting my appreciation and venting my frustrations with some of them. But many of them have been very, very good. I can't fault what's available to us, so long as we stick to our budget. This is important. And not only the budget and the price we pay with whisky, but the budget and the volume we consume. Because there's something I just really want to share with you that I was thinking about recently as I plan for having my next week completely off whisky. No whisky. I won't be touching a drop of whisky. I'll be comprehensively resting my palate. And it's an important thing to do for us all. We need to refresh ourselves because it helps us to recalibrate and reconfigure how we're going to go forward and how we're going to spend our money in the year ahead and what we're going to spend it on. I know people who have grown cynical. They have decided, particularly folk who are following fitness regimes, because it's quite fashionable to be alcohol free. They're going not just dry January, not just dry February, but nearly dry March. And good luck to them for those who decide to cut alcohol out of their lifestyle completely. It's trending. There's no doubt about it. There's more intoxicant varieties and opportunities out there above and beyond cigarettes and alcohol. And this is why sticking to quality, the quality and the calibre of the experience is so important. If we are going to consume alcohol, which can be an intoxicant if you allow it to be, we really want to do so in small volumes, focusing on quality. Now that quality is definitely out there. You'll notice it in the shortlist in the 3rd Online Scotch Whisky Awards 2023, which have been a fantastic milestone for the online whisky community generally. one of the ideas I had in my mind when I was discussing it with Roy, my co-host of the Oswes, is that we have some sort of mechanism that allows people to come together, concentrate and celebrate what is the best, what's affordable, what's available. And the Oswes certainly do this wonderfully well for a very simple reason. We've kept it simple. And it's been very rewarding for me as I celebrate 1,000 reviews. I do so at roughly the same time as we have the third online Scotch Whisky Awards, which has had to date 33,000 views. And that's not views from casual, passive consumers. That is reviews from proactive whisky customers, people like you and I, who spend their money on this stuff. And we need to get good value. And it's never been easier purely because of the internet. That is the one single medium which has delivered the real information that anyone buying whisky requires. And that is what's good, what's worth the money. This is the fundamental information that we all require. And therefore, not just here on Ralphie.com, but there's so many other good whisky channels, both in video format and blog format, that now create this wonderful community online. Sure, we're not all meeting together in the pub, not all the time, but I think particularly the Scotch whisky industry is very fortunate in the level of positivity it gets online, and perhaps it should do more to actually appreciate it. The online Scotch Whisky Awards, I want to say a big thank you, because this is the third year of the awards. A real big thank you to my co-host Roy Duff from Aquavit channel, which I recommend you go and check out. And check out the Barflies, which is a growing cultural phenomenon associated not just with Scotch whisky, but with global spirits. And again, this is something that's fairly recent, and it's very symbolic of where things are going with whisky in 2024. He's really good to cooperate with us, Roy, because we're very different people, and he's quite happy to do all the enormous amount of number scrunching with the votes. Over 65,000 votes this year alone, and it will grow. It will continue to grow and have influence. And I also want to give a passing shout to Rob and Chuck, who have been our behind-the-scenes social media delivery guys. And what fantastic malt mates. Really appreciate what these guys have done to help build and grow on the good work that previous volunteers have done in the last 2 years. So things are changing, things are moving, and 14 years, by the way, I've been running this channel, and it's quite extraordinary how much has changed. Inevitably, I've changed. At times I get a little bit cynical. At times I have these wonderful moments where I discover a whisky which just blows my socks off. Hence the reason I've selected one of them to be my Whisky of the Year for 2024. Back to that shortly. But I also want to say thanks to folk who supported me in my week-long installation at the Good Spirits Company and at the Bon Accord, for my art show, book signing, merchandise selling of my bottles of whisky, the Ralphie bottlings. There's a rum and 2 whiskies, some of which are still available for sale at Good Spirits Company if you're interested, but they're running out, basically selling out fast now. And also to my guest bottlers that helped me celebrate 1,000 reviews, to Signatory and Ardna Murkin, who did special bottlings for me with my ugly mush on them. Thank you to these folks, much appreciated. I selected them for a very simple reason. Last year they won in a category on the online Scotch Whisky Awards. That is the reason I approached them, and they were both happy to join me, along with Springbank, who have provided 2 unique 20-year-old cask strength, bourbon matured Springbank bottlings, which are currently on display in the Good Spirits Company in the big glass cabinet, where you can go and see them if you happen to be in Glasgow and happen to be in the shop. One will be going into auction in February next year, and the other will be opened at the Bon Accord in North Street at Charing Cross, and will be sold by the dram, so people can get to taste it if they would choose to do so, with all the money raised going to a local food bank. I'm delighted that I raised, what, £1,200 for a local food bank in Glasgow. We shouldn't need them, but we do. It's the state of Britain. It's what it is. I'm not going to go off script now. That's a rant for another day. But thank you to everybody who bought my artworks and contributed towards that success. So a big thank you to Good Spirits Company and the team there. Very small shop. They've got lots of issues with the British postal delivery system, which is fraught with bureaucratic obstacles. It is what it is. So thank you, folk who have bought online, for your patience. And sorry for those that simply couldn't get any of my bottlings shipped to where you are in the world. So sorry Canada, sorry Australia, sorry quite a few states in America. It's just the reality of the situation. And a big thank you to the Bon Accord, which remains my favourite bar in Glasgow. It's the bar that's always made me welcome. It's the bar that always will make me welcome. And someday I'll tell you the story about the fact that it was the first bar I was ever in. And I went into it when I was 16 years old. Cheers. It's a long time ago, malt mates. Whilst I was in Glasgow, slightly smoky, slightly sooty. When I was in Glasgow, I was special guest at Glasgow's Whisky Festival. If there's any piece of advice I would like to give you for the forthcoming year, malt mates, is find yourself some tickets to a whisky festival. They're a fantastic experience. Eat plenty of pies and milk and have plenty of water to drink while you're at the festival. Enjoy what's on offer, but keep your portions small. The pourers at these events will help you. There's so much to be learned at a whisky festival, and I have to say, I was delighted to just see so many small businesses, independent bottlers and new distilleries at Glasgow's Whisky Festival in November there. And what a great event it was, and all credit to Glasgow's Whisky Club and the organisers. Fantastic job. And it's in its 14th year as well. My goodness, parallel to my own channel. So I suppose we've got to the part where I need to introduce to you my whisky of the year. But before I do so, I'm going to make a few little short predictions for 2024. 2024 will be the year that the passive whisky consumer pulls in their purse strings, and a lot of whiskies at travel retail and in supermarkets are no longer selling in the volume they used to. People don't have the money. There is a slow encroaching global recession coming on. People anticipate it, and people are cutting their spending and cutting out the luxury goods, particularly when some of the luxury goods out there are not of particularly good quality and relying on the brand name to deliver them. It happens. But I also predict that we're going to see some lovely, lovely bottlings at reasonable prices from new distilleries as they build and rapidly grow their reputation. So hopefully they will be available to you wherever you are in the world. We do not have a global distribution system yet for whiskies and other spirits, but it's starting to morph. It's starting to gather pace, and it will happen, I reckon, within the next 10 years. I also anticipate that you're going to take more time off in between drams. You're going to have more confidence to let your bottle of good quality whiskey or bourbon or rum last longer. There is no hurry to finish a bottle once you open it. Remember, it's hidden in plain sight. No bottle of whiskey ever has an expiry date written on it. It doesn't. It'll last as long as honey. They found honey in the tombs of Egyptian bureaucrats and pharaohs, you know. And if the Egyptians had been making whisky, I'm sure we'd have found traces of that as well. Anyway, I'm starting to flannel slightly, so I'm going to finish off this review by saying thank you for being with me, joining me on the journey for another year. It's been an eventful year, but not as much as next year, which is going to be even more eventful. We will start to see some Scotch whisky distilleries really struggling. We will see some new brands growing and consolidating their reputation. And for those who are the winners, those distilleries who are preparing for the future, all they have to do is very simple: connect and observe what's happening with the online whisky community. See what people are looking for and then respond. It's not rocket science. Ralphie's Whisky of the Year. Oh, here we go. Better put the big drum roll. It's not a single malt. I may better mention this. It's very reasonable. It's a young whisky. It's very good for what it is. And it's one I'll certainly be reviewing shortly, and I'm very happy to recommend. It's called Maclean's Nose. An Integrity blended Scotch. There are a few of these blended Scotch appearing now. Thompson Brothers are doing it. Another dish. Right, what's the name of that other independent bottler that's doing a blended Scotch, and it's really, really good, and I'll be reviewing it later in the year. Dramore. Right, I knew I'd remember if I was patient with myself. We're seeing the emergence both from distilleries as official bottlings, but also from independent bottlers, of a new category of integrity delivered blended Scotch whisky. This is one of by far the best examples of it. I have selected this to be my whisky of the year for 2024 because I'm sending a very clear message to the Scotch whisky industry from the bothy. Keep it quality and keep it value together. This is important. People's budgets are under pressure now. There's no doubt about it. And this is an excellent innovation, a reinvention of something that's always existed. The integrity presentation, 46% natural colour, unchill filtered, of a category which up until recently has been considered quite pedestrian and boring by single malt whisky drinkers. I hope you will join me in 2024. I'll be starting the year reviewing this and also reviewing examples of the winners of last year's online Scotch Whisky Awards. It remains for me to say, here's to you, and Lang, may your rum leak. Yeah, that's it. Because with these old staves out the casks, my lum, rum's another thing, my lum is certainly a reeking. Cheers now.